So look, unless you've been living under a rock, no pun intended, you might have noticed that the yellow metal is absolutely ripping right now. This past week, gold hit $3,673 an ounce at the time of recording this video. Maybe it finished the week a slightly bit higher. Fresh all-time high for the asset. And zooming back out for just a bit, gold is up 78% since the beginning of 2024. Now, given that gold has the largest market cap of any asset on the planet, a move like this is epic. But it should also be sounding the alarm bells for us Bitcoin and crypto investors, because gold is signaling that something is happening in the macro economy that will affect our bags. So for today's video, there's actually two questions that I want to tackle. Why is gold making this move right now? And are gold's movements a hidden signal for when we could see a new all-time high for Bitcoin? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes. These are my questions. So let's dive in, guys. Okay, so why the heck is gold just ripping right now? Again, this is a 26 something trillion asset. These are huge moves. And there's several reasons for it, but if we had to collapse everything down into just two factors, it's global economic instability and the resulting monetary decisions from central banks around the world. Banks like China have been just mad stacking tons upon tons of gold. So global economic instability. What are we talking about here? Well, basically we are in a fiat system that's fueled by unsustainable debt. And cracks in the system are starting to get bigger. So think higher debt levels in the US and in other developed economies, okay? The diminishing value of the US dollar, and the market is increasingly concerned about the long-term viability of US bonds, especially considering that now if you get on the wrong side of America, they will take your money away from you. China saw that, other countries saw that, and they're getting worried. Now, what's the response from the central banks in the face of all these problems? Well, it's been to pursue looser monetary policies. So that's interest rate cuts, that's quantitative easing, not in the US, but other countries, yes. It's the only path forward in order to keep the fiat Titanic afloat for at least a little bit longer before it all goes to heck. Now, I think the market sees all this, and the market participants are running to gold because it's, well, has thousands and thousands of years as a store of value, as a safe haven asset. It's resistant to inflation and uncertainty, and until we start mining asteroids or transmuting lead into gold, which will happen in probably 20 or 30 years, but that's for later us to worry about. Until then, it's a good place to store your money. The gold charts look like this. So that answers our question of why gold is making the move right now. So turning to our second question, are gold's movements actually a hidden signal for a Bitcoin new all-time high? So check out this recent post here from Ted over on X. Ted argues that gold tends to pump first while Bitcoin either dumps or stagnates. However, at some point after gold peaks, Bitcoin follows and makes a new all-time high of its own. It's a very interesting correlation. Whenever shit hits the fan, the market panics. They run to gold, okay? But then as the market realizes that kind of nothing ever happens and the big print will inevitably start at some point, they always have ways to inject liquidity in the system. Well, they move on to Bitcoin after that for the asymmetric upside. Kind of makes perfect sense if you think about it. So the implication therefore is that since gold is at an all-time high right now, Bitcoin should soon rally to a new all-time high as well. That's the idea. But is it true? Does the data support it? And if it is, what is the lag time between gold's peak to Bitcoin's peak on average? We're gonna break all that down for you guys. If you wanna trade Bitcoin, you wanna trade Ethereum, Solana, dog coins, any altcoins with deep liquidity, BitUnix is the hot spot to be doing that. That's where I'm doing most of my futures trading these days. There's never been a better time to join. No KYC, no VPN, no BS, available to anyone, anywhere. That's you, you're anyone, you're anywhere, you can sign up. And it's never been a better time to sign up because they have insane deals going on right now. $400 in deposit bonus. You deposit $2,000 or more, $400 cash back money. Insane trading bonuses. Basically, the more you trade, the more cash money they put back in your account. That's nuts. Plus, you'll get VIP level 3 exclusively using my link for a trial. That's a 30% fee discount. That's also crazy. If you're trading a lot, you know how quickly that adds up. And we're giving away $1,000 every live stream during the whole month of September, Monday to Friday. All you have to do, sign up. Use the link down below and you'll be in to win your share of those daily giveaways. Check it out. Thank you very much. Okay, let's dig into the charts and see if we can answer these questions. So look, here's Bitcoin versus gold since 2019. Bitcoin is dark orange with its price scale on the left. Gold is light yellow, price scale on the right. Now, just from an eyeball analysis, here's what I'm seeing. First, these two assets are definitely positively correlated, just with a lag. We did a video on this before. They don't correlate perfectly on the day. There is a correlation though, but it tends to be a lagged correlation. Second, gold most definitely moved first during the 2020 COVID money print, with Bitcoin following after. So zooming in on this period, you can see that both crashed at the same time when COVID outbreak hit. Basically, everything was sold off at the same time, no matter what the asset was. Gold pumped first, Bitcoin then followed, with Bitcoin's local peak arriving about 250 days after gold's local peak. So that's last cycle. Now turning to our current cycle, it does appear that a similar pattern is playing out right now. Let's start by focusing at the very end of 2022 to about mid-2023. This period is basically the bear market for Bitcoin, with the first signs of recovery just beginning to happen. Now, zooming in on this area, it does appear that gold started climbing out of the bear market first, with Bitcoin then following behind. Bitcoin's local peak came 70 days after gold's local peak. Now, let's look at 2024. Near the beginning of that year, Bitcoin actually got the jump on gold first, with gold's local peak coming about 125 days after Bitcoin's local peak. However, you know what happened at the start of 2024? The spot Bitcoin ETFs launched in the USA, so that was probably the reason why Bitcoin led gold in that particular instance. Again, it's not a perfect correlation all the time. It's just something that often happens and is certainly worth paying attention to. In the latter half of 2024, after the Bitcoin ETF mania kind of moved on, things went back to normal. Gold moved up first, Bitcoin followed, with Bitcoin's local peak coming just 48 days after gold's local peak. Now let's focus on 2025. It looks like the same pattern playing out. Gold moved first, then Bitcoin followed, as Bitcoin's all-time high at 124K coming about 100 days after the all-time high that gold had just made. So again, zooming back out again here, what can we see? What are the charts telling us? Well, we've identified 5 times where it looked obvious that either gold or Bitcoin moved well ahead of the other. 4 times, which are shown from peak to peak time spans in purple, gold had the first mover advantage, and 1 time Bitcoin did, but again, I really think that's just because of the Bitcoin ETF. And it's an anomaly in the chart, if you will, okay, due to those ETF launches. Now, when we run the averages for the 4 peak-to-peak time spans for when gold moved first, the average is 117 days. Now, let's apply this number to our current situation. So gold has been consolidating for about the last 5 months approximately. But near the end of August, it started making a hard breakout move to the north. Now, assuming that gold's current price at $3,650 as the next local peak, which it may not be, it may go much higher. Let's just an assumption here, okay? And just for record, I don't think that's the top for gold. I think we do go higher, but just we need a starting point here, so let's assume that for now it is. Then everything we discussed today says that Bitcoin should follow gold here, with a new Bitcoin all-time high coming potentially the first week of 2026. When I say all-time high, I mean the next peak for Bitcoin, not like 124,000 and a few bucks change. No, I'm talking like 150, 160, 170. Now, I wouldn't get too hung up on that precise date or anything like that, because we're dealing with very small sample size, and some of those are relatively small and some are big. Again, the average is 117 days, but somewhere within the next few months, we're going to see Bitcoin break out in a very substantial way. I think gold probably goes higher from here over the next weeks, maybe a couple of months. Once gold finds its top, then the countdown for Bitcoin to find its top then starts. Okay, Bitcoin follows gold, and gold is breaking into blue sky all-time highs right now, and we're entering into Q4, 1.5 years after our last halving. So usually you'd expect a pretty big move around this time. Rate cuts are coming too, of course, adding more fuel to the fire. Therefore, I want you to understand that I think there's a very good chance that Bitcoin follows gold much higher here. Again, gold will have its nice little move. Bitcoin will rage much higher with a much bigger move. And we'll be getting a new Bitcoin all-time high either sometime later in Q4 or in Q1. That will be the next major local peak for the market. And no, we're not ready to have a conversation yet about what happens to Bitcoin if the $10,000 gold ounce predictions play out over the next few years, which honestly I think could happen with the debasement of fiat currencies and all that kind of stuff, but that's a whole different conversation. But the next local peak for BTC, we should be watching out somewhere between $150 and potentially as high as $180,000. Then we have major correction. Most people will think that's the end of the cycle. It's all over for a very, very long time, whereas in reality, it may only be a multi-month correction, before the next leg up in the market if global M2 and everything else going on is any indication about where we're in the business cycle, et cetera, things we talk about all the time here on the channel. But watch out for the next major local peak because gold is telling us that it could be coming in the next few months. Thanks for watching.